What do people think when they think of Russia? According to the recent research from Google, most of the people associated with three things: matryoshkas, big furry hats, and black caviar. Thankfully, vodka didn't make the list. But of course, Russian culture is far broader and consists of many integral parts. In this video, we will go through the other three main areas where the Russian impact is quite valuable and could be encapsulated with the main achievements of the other world's nations and cultures. Each topic here deserves a special video, but here are some highlights. We'll begin our journey of the Russian heritage with the exploration of space, which had left a significant mark on the social, technological and cultural development in the USSR. In the 1920s, many of the Russian scientists were obsessed with the idea of reaching the distant stars, going to the cosmos and other planets. The humble beginnings of the space exploration started with Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. His works on aerodynamics, reactive engines and rockets were prophetic and helped in the creation of the first working prototypes of the spaceship. Cosmos was just one of the areas of interest for Tsiolkovsky, and due to the state of the technology at the time, he could not conduct a lot of the experiments he had described. However, some of his apprentices soon after the Second World War were able to expand on Tsiolkovsky's ideas and created the Soviet space program. And what a program it was! In 1957, Soviet scientists managed to send the first artificial Earth satellite, called Sputnik 1, into space, and just 4 years after that, they did the same with a human being. During that period, people were obsessed with space. Designers were creating objects with the cosmos theme in them. There were songs, films, poems and novels dedicated to the new and unknown world. The launch of the satellite sparked interest in math and physics, and not only in the USSR, but in Europe and the US as well. The desire to explore the new world shaped the whole generation of people in and out of the Soviet Union, and that is why those years in that development are ought to be remembered. We will continue our journey and talk about the belly. The art that is one of the most exported Russian goods, like furs and caviar. Oh, we've already talked about that. The never-ending interest of the world public may lead to believe that belly was always synonymous with the Russian culture, but that was not always the case. This exotic dance was brought by Peter the Great with many other European things like newspapers and silly dresses. It was originally considered not to be an art form, but a way to modernize Russian high society. Not only belly succeeded in that, but it also managed to create a whole new form of expressing the vast Russian folk motifs, as well as the overall love of dancing, making belly an integral part of Russian culture. Belly influenced many other art forms such as the costume design, stage decorations and music composition. The synergy of these arts peaked in the early 20th century with the Belly Rus, a series of performances organized by impresario Sergei Diaghilev in Paris from 1909 up until 1929, which deeply influenced Western classic culture and belly in and of itself. Belly Rus were a starting point for many talented painters and composers of that time, and not only Russian. Diaghilev had invited a lot of artists that were not well known at the time and had given promotion for someone like Igor Stravinsky, Claude Debussy, Sergei Prokofiev, Pablo Picasso and many others. Belly is one of the reasons why we still know and enjoy the works of those artists, which is already a great legacy of this beautiful dance. In the Soviet Russia, belly remained one of the pillars of the classical Russian culture, and in the dawn of the USSR, belly also became a symbol of political change. In the span of 10 years from 1981 till 1991, the belly Swan Lake was broadcasted on the TV 4 times. 3 times when the leader of the Communist Party had died, and for the last time in August of 1991, instead of the news about the fall of the Soviet Union, which meant that Swan Lake became the swan song for the regime. But as much belly was a great method to express oneself, it was obviously not the only way to succeed in the art space. An enormous part of the Russian culture was also supported by merchants and entrepreneurs. Of course, this was not an unusual thing for any society with rapidly advancing capitalism, but the story of early Russian philanthropism is very short yet beautiful and influential on the culture of the country. It begins in the middle of the 19th century when the liberal reforms gave some savvy people an opportunity to create enterprises focused on the production of various goods, and also allowed those people to spend some of the free time on patronizing arts and science. The most famous name, or in fact surname in this sphere, is Tretyakov. Two brothers, Pavel and Sergei, became rich by manufacturing textile and started to collect art in the 1850s with the aim to create Russian National Gallery. After 30 years, their collection included remarkable products from their contemporaries as well as a vast collection of old Western paintings. In 1892, Tretyakov presented the already famous collection of approximately 2,000 works to the Russian nation. This collection is now known as the Tretyakov Gallery, but Tretyakovs were not the only ones. Sava Morozov was one of the latter philanthropists who also gained his fortune on making textile because people really needed something instead of those silly dresses, and put a significant amount of his wealth towards architecture and drama and helped to create and sustain the Moscow Art Theatre, the first to regularly put on shows implementing the Stanislavski system, which proved to be hugely influential in the acting world and in the development of modern theatre and drama. Sava Mamontov was another great patron of arts. In 1870 he purchased the Abramtseva estate and founded there an artistic union which included some of the best Russian artists of the early 20th century, such as Konstantin Korovin, Vasily Polenov, Valentin Serov, Viktor Vasnetsov, as well as various others. The colony of artists who hosted there produced paintings, handmade furniture and ceramic tiles that were sought to recapture the quality and spirit of medieval Russian art. The latter part of the 19th century and early 20th century is sometimes called a golden age of Russian culture. Indeed, music, art and literature were flourishing, and this might not have happened if there were no courageous and passionate people that saw the great talents that were emerging at the time and that helped them to strive. So, throughout the history, Russia was always full of creative and ambitious people that were bound to innovate and risk everything in order to make the world better. This video offers just a glimpse of a vast Russian heritage, but even those three things show the incredible desire and urge to go out of bounds, to excel, and to prove that nothing is impossible. These are the traits that show the best of Russian character, and this is the cultural heritage that is more than worthy to be proud of. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.